episode of my podcast story, we have John Ball, the engaging host of Present Influence, the professional speaking show. John's podcast has become a go-to resource for professional speakers, coaches, and communicators looking to master their presentation skills and build genuine influence. With over 15 years in personal and professional development, John brings a fascinating background to his podcasting journey, from his early career as a British Airways flight attendant to becoming a respected keynote speaker and communication coach. Based in Valencia, Spain, John combines his dry English humor, philosophical insights, and expertise in charismatic communication to create content that both entertains and transforms his listeners' professional presence. He's here today to share his unique journey from hospitality to professional podcast host, and how he's helping others move from mediocrity to mastery through the power of authentic communication. Tell me about your name and the name of your podcast and what your podcast is about.
Okay, well, my name's John Ball, and I have two podcasts. But my first podcast I started back in 2019. It's called Present Influence. It's been through a few different names, but that is the name I'm sticking with now. And it's about helping people develop their presentation skills and their influence levels to be able to become masterful communicators. And my other show, which I started last year with a friend of mine, is called The Coaching Clinic. And on that show, we are both sharing our coaching expertise to help people who have coaching businesses to be able to develop their business, to grow their business, and to deepen their client sessions as well.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, and I want you to be honest with me. And what was the real reason you started your first podcast?
It's a reason probably most people would never come up with. It was a project in my Toastmasters club. So one of the options was to record a podcast. And I had done a few podcast episodes back in 2012, maybe about five or six. I hadn't stuck with it. But I thought I really wanted to do it again and come back to it. And that was it. That was the initial spark of enthusiasm, if you like, the thing that pushed me to actually record a podcast again.
Yeah, I was gonna say school project, but then I realized that it wasn't school project, but it was one of those projects that ended up being something else.
Yeah, I could have picked a number of other things, but I actually encouraged a friend from my Toastmasters club to come and record with me, which she did very kindly. And we recorded about a 1 hour episode for the very first episode of the show back in, I think it was October 2019.
Well, what exactly were you guys discussing for 1 hour?
We were discussing influence and persuasion, and a lot of the conversation was about the darker side of influence. And so we were talking about how people sometimes use influence tools to manipulate, how often these things get used in like religious cults, for example. So yeah, it was a very varied conversation about the darker side of influence.
Wow. Wow. Did you have any expectations when you started the podcast? And this is me rephrasing the question that I asked earlier on in a different way. What were your expectations when you started the podcast?
I didn't really have any expectations. One of the only podcasts that I listened to regularly at that time was Tim Ferriss. And I'd heard him say on his podcast that if you're going to do podcasting, don't do it to make money, because you'll probably give up before you make anything, and do it because you want to do it. Do it because you've got something to share, and maybe because you enjoy podcasting. And those seemed like good enough reasons for me to keep going with it. After we'd done one episode, my friend who co-hosted with me, she didn't want to continue, so I carried on my own. And then I started getting introduced to people who wanted to be podcast guests, and so things sort of grew from there, really. But that was it. No expectation that it was going to really create business for me or generate income or sponsorship or anything. I just wanted to play with it, have fun, and see what happened.
Yeah. This is me just being curious. Is your podcast audio only or audio and video?
It is audio primarily, but I do publish video as well. And simply because I think YouTube is too big a platform to not put the content out there. But I don't make the content for video. I make it for audio. And so the video content is really just, if anyone wants to watch me having a conversation
Oh,
by myself or with someone else, they can watch it.
so
But
the video is an afterthought.
yeah, well, maybe not an afterthought, but it's not. I'm not like trying to make YouTube content. I'm
Yeah,
making podcast content that I'm distributing on YouTube,
yeah. So
if
you
that
you
makes
make you
sense.
make you make your podcast episode, and then you're like, oh, that's true. We did record this stuff on video. Let's just put it on YouTube.
Right. And I probably get about the same, I probably double my downloads each week by publishing it on YouTube, which I think
Wow,
is worthwhile.
wow. I'm sold. I have to get on YouTube.
It is worth it. You can actually publish your RSS feed onto YouTube now. So you can, at the very least, you can have your audio podcast going
Yeah,
out there. And I do get people listening to the audio podcast on YouTube.
yeah.
But more certainly with YouTube, more people watch the video content than they do tune into the audio podcast there.
Yeah, the sweet thing about YouTube is the fact that it's built for discoverability, unlike other podcast
Yes.
platforms. Except people know
Yes.
you, they go check out your podcast. Nobody really has time to find or discover you. Well, unlike YouTube, people can find you and say, "Wow, yeah, this guy, what's he talking about?" Yeah,
Right. Yeah, it's a good way to get more coverage, but I do think the audiences for audio podcasts and for video podcasts are different. And so they need to be catered to differently. So I cater my show more to audio, and anyone who wants to watch video is welcome. But if you primarily wanted to have a video podcast, I would focus on catering to YouTube audiences.
yeah,
And you can still, by all means, you could still publish the audio, but your primary focus then would be YouTube, which for a lot of people does make sense because it's so much easier to monetize.
yeah. Apart from monetization, I feel that a lot of people discover the podcast they listen to via YouTube. So they don't necessarily listen to podcasts on YouTube, but the podcast they listen to, they found or discovered it on YouTube, and then they go listen to it on the podcasting platforms.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it, I can only really sort of talk from my own experience as a podcast listener that I don't use YouTube to listen to podcasts. I use Apple Podcasts mostly to listen to other people's shows. Because it's easier for me to line up all the podcasts that I like to listen to on Apple and
Yeah,
have them autoplay
and just
than it
start
is for
binging
me
them.
to yeah. I
Yeah,
guess so I can just leave stuff playing. Whereas YouTube, you have to go and select the videos that you want to watch and stuff. So I can go to the gym and I can keep the podcast playing. I can go for a bike ride and keep them playing. That's what I like to do.
yeah. You mentioned earlier on that you've rebranded your first podcast a couple of times, and now the
Yes,
name is Present Influence. I
that's
would
right.
love to hear some of the the awkward names you had for the podcast.
Oh gosh, you want to embarrass me now? No, it's okay. It's cool. It's
Yeah,
cool. When the show started, I was trying to be clever, and clever isn't a good idea when you're trying to name a podcast. Just for anyone who thinks it is. I was looking for a word that was just like it's going to be about talking because it was going to be about speaking and talking, and I kept thinking about the word loquacious, but that seemed a bit long
mm,
for a podcast name, the Loquacious Podcast. So I
loquacious,
shortened it. Yeah, so I shortened it to Loki, Loqui.
Loki.
Nobody got it. The Loki podcast. Nobody understood it. Nobody got what that was meant referencing. People thought it was like Loki, the Norse god of mischief. It's like, well, that's fun, but no. So I think after a while, I changed it to Speaking of Influence.
Mm.
So it has been through few different names, but last year I decided to fit the branding in with my professional operating name, with my business operating name, which is Present Influence, so that everything comes under the same brand. It just made a lot of sense.
So you turned the podcast into a business podcast.
It's part of my business ecosystem. Yeah. Now, now it wasn't originally.
I really could have said yes. I was expecting to say, "Wow, it's complicated," and then he said, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a business in itself, but much as someone having written a book is an opportunity for people to know more about them and to come into their world somewhat.
yeah,
A
yeah, yeah,
podcast is a great way to do that as well. So it has become part of my business, but it isn't my business as such, if that makes sense. I
yeah.
don't make money from it.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that what all podcasters have? Like majority of the podcasters, they don't make money directly from their podcast. It's something that ties indirectly
Right.
into other stuff.
Yeah, mostly not. It very much depends on what kind of podcast you have. But I would say for podcasts like mine that are nonfiction podcasts that are aimed towards a particular niche audience, because my show is aimed towards professional communicators. So either that's people who are speaking as professional speakers, or coaches who might use speaking, or people who use presentation skills in their business or in their corporate life. This is going to be a relevant show for them. So I know who the show is aimed for. And those are people who sometimes will come and work with me. So the show itself doesn't make me money, but it does sometimes bring people more into my world. So it has helped me get some clients over the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it all makes sense. Uh, when
Yeah.
you started the podcast, how good? Okay, now I know this might be quite difficult to put a quantitative, measure towards it, but we'll try. How good were
Mhm.
you with the topic of the podcast compared to like now?
All right. So, like my level of expertise in the topic, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I would say I had a reasonable level of knowledge when I started doing the show, but that has increased enormously since then.
yeah, of
And
course.
a lot of that has been to do with bringing guests onto the show who have incredible expertise themselves, who I have had the privilege to learn from as being on my show. So it has expanded my knowledge a lot. And I do a lot of solo episodes as well, which always encourages me to keep learning, keep reading, keep taking programs that grow myself, because it gives me more to add and deliver to my audience, as well as keeping my own growth and development going, which I think is critical for this kind of show.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's been a big growth journey, but I think I would have kept growing and developing anyway, but probably it accelerated a lot of that growth for me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The interesting thing for me is the fact that it gets to. I think podcasting is underrated. Like I would say I've been thinking about it for a long time. It is underrated, highly
Mhm.
underrated. Like in the list of things that are underrated, podcasting is one of them, because
Yeah.
it's hard. Podcasting is hard, but then it's like a, how do I call it now? Okay, I don't want to use the word manipulation or any of those things. It's one of the get there's what called J free card, but this one is more like is an easy pass with a
Yeah.
podcast, wherever industry you are in, right? And you start a podcast in that industry, you can basically have the opportunity and the excuse to talk to the people that you love, and
Oh
you really
yeah.
love their work, all in the name of having a podcast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That has been a huge benefit in doing the show. My network has expanded hugely, and it's allowed me to be brave enough, as you say, in the name of the podcast, to reach out to people who I'd really like to connect with and say, "Hey, would you come on my podcast?" Sometimes they say no, but sometimes they don't respond at all. But sometimes they say yes, and so
Yeah,
I've had some really amazing guests, and it is much easier to reach out and be that bit braver when there's a good reason for you doing it, and
yeah,
you're not just after a connection or whatever from them. And people do like to come and talk about themselves and their expertise
yeah,
generally. And of course, sometimes the decision is made based on how long you've had your show and how many listeners you have. But for the most part, people say yes because they're happy to share and they want to help. And if they have time, they'll usually do it.
yeah. I mean, I like the first reason you give. People say yes based on how long you've had your show. I mean, being active. Most most guests want to see that you're active, that you're serious. Not. and
Yeah.
the numbers of active might be different. But regardless of what the number might be, you would want to see that, okay, you've been posting consistently for the past 3 months or 6 months, as the case might be.
Mm.
You've been showing up consistently. You are on Apple, on Spotify, and these are all things that are within our control. Like these things, they are not subject to, oh, I go viral or not. It's something that you can do. You are on
Yeah.
YouTube, you are there, and they can see that, oh, this guy has been doing this stuff for 6 months. This stuff, like, the thing is serious, because if you have been doing something consistently for the past 6 months or more, it means that the stuff is like serious for you to spend time,
Yeah.
energy, be showing up all the time. And it's like a shortcut for networking, honestly. Because I can't imagine what other, let's just say we try to change the phrase and say, hello, good evening, sir. I love your work. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to talk to you.
Right.
I'm like, dude, who's this guy?
But look, I'll say this: you're absolutely right. And if you, as a podcaster, also have a business where you're looking to connect with opportunity, maybe that's through people you want to work with, or maybe it's from people who you want to have as clients potentially. It's a great way to establish trust. And one thing I'm hearing over and over again from expert marketers is that there's a trust deficit right now. And if you have 6 months, a year, more than a year of podcasting, people can be a bit more relaxed about being able to trust you because you have presence. You have, to some degree, the ability to demonstrate what expertise and voice you have. And people can listen to, in my case, I have over 200 episodes of Present Influence for people to choose from. So it's like, well, if you want to know whether I've got expertise in this topic or not, this show's been on since 2009 and there's over 200 episodes.
Wow.
You can probably be somewhat trusting that I probably have some idea what I'm talking about. So there's this thing of, well, I obviously haven't just turned up and thrown out a few episodes and think, oh, that's it, that's all I need to do. Come and trust me and buy my stuff. This is a continual giving of value, not for the sake of wanting something in return, but for the sake of, I'm really interested in this and I want to share it with you. I want to share it with anyone who's interested to listen. And if that also helps me attract potential clients in the future, even better.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to choose between two products with the same, like, almost the same quality, and one is like, I've been in business for the past 30 years, and this other guy is like, well, we just started 1 month ago. Now, no offense, it doesn't mean it has nothing to do with the product, but, like, dude, I'm like, this guy, they've been around for a long time, and the tendency that they will be around for a longer time is higher compared to you. You just started you just started 1 month ago. Like, what are the chances?
Well, look, if the only real difference between the two products is the amount of time that the person's been in business,
Yeah,
and you do buy based on levels of trust, you are far more likely to go for the business that's been around longer. That
yeah.
doesn't mean it's the right decision. It just means you just have more trust there.
Like, well, if we were to go back to the very beginning, isn't trust
Mm,
based on something? Like, if I say I trust this person, why do I trust them? If I say I trust my friend, why do I trust my friend? It's because, okay, over the 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, depending on how long the friendship has been, this friend has been, be living up to their word. They've been kind, they've been this, and so I say I trust them. Now, it doesn't mean that that friend, maybe something could have happened that, changed their life, and they become maybe an evil villain over the course of maybe 24 hours. I don't know. But when I see
right.
them, I trust them because over all through the past, they've been living up to that. So trust is basically based on, on the past stuff that we've done. So people want to look at, okay. And I think I was saying this recently with my friend, that I was like, as much as possible, people don't want to believe with their products. They rather believe with, sorry, they don't want to believe with their own with their own, by buying the stuff from me. They would rather believe from someone else. They will believe that, oh, these clients,
Yeah.
oh, they tried the stuff and it worked for them, rather than, okay, let me test it and believe.
A lot of trust comes from connection. It comes from relationship with people.
Yeah.
And so a podcast can allow you to develop that connection and relationship. And if you are showing up pretty consistently as the same person throughout all that time, there's not much reason for people to doubt that you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you might not be a little different in person in
Yeah.
different situations. We are all different in different situations, but at least when it comes to what you do professionally or what your podcast is about, there's every reason for people that the more they tune in and listen to you to trust you. I will. I'll share this with you. I've had people come to me and say that they listen to the podcast, and very often they'll hear my voice in their head when they're thinking about things that relate to the topics, or
Ooh,
they'll think about words that I've said, and like, wow, that's amazing.
wow.
You actually hear my voice, and it shouldn't be a surprise because I listen to other people's podcasts as well, and I could say the same for them. I can, I could be reading something from another person, and I will hear their voice. Like I'll read it as if I'm hearing their voice saying it,
Yeah.
because I'm familiar with their voice. That is a deep level of rapport to have with people.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that social media and the internet, in a way, has kind of like commoditized what it means to have depth of relationship with people. I mean, if you have that
Sure.
kind of depth with 100 persons, that's a lot, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot,
isn't it though?
honestly.
Isn't it? Yeah, I think that's one of the things I see most with podcasters is people underestimate the value of their audience. Like, oh, I've only got 10 downloads, I've only got 15, I've only got 30 or 50 or whatever, wherever they're at. It's like, okay, it might seem really low, but imagine you have that many people in a room, and these are people who are regularly listening to you, regularly want to show up. If they're people you're looking to turn into clients, you potentially have 10, 15, 20, 30 clients there from people who are like, this, I'm interested in your topic. I like the way you approach it and talk about it. I potentially want to work with you. That's significant. And I think people underestimate just how valuable even a small podcast audience can be. I certainly did for the longest time. I thought, oh, it's like, well, if you've got, I think probably for my first year of the show, I'd get like 10 to 15 downloads per episode. I think, well, what's the point? It's like me and my mum and whoever I can get to listen to it,
Yeah,
tuning into the
mom. Like
podcast.
honestly, we need to create kind of like an internet sensation to celebrate all moms that support us as podcasters.
Well, I don't think my mum listened to every episode. I'll
Okay.
say that, but the growth generally with podcasts is so slow. So most people, that's why I say most people, don't do this if you're looking to make a quick buck. It won't work. It won't get you money quickly unless you're already well known, you already have a huge following, or you have a foolproof way to get a huge following really quick. Because if you don't, podcasting isn't going to deliver that to you. But if you enjoy talking about your topic, if you have the time and willingness to put into this, and you think podcasting is something you'll enjoy, then absolutely give it a go. But just be realistic with the expectations that you have for this. Of a lot of podcast is more give than take. It's like you will be giving and giving before you get anything back, and most people get fed up of that.
The funny thing is, it depends. I'll take of it this way. I mean, it's just like when someone watches an ad and probably they tell you that if you take this thing, you're going to become slim. You're not going to be overweight and stuff like that. And we all know that that's complete lies.
Mm.
And so when I'll give an example. What example? Which product would I give an example of now? Yeah, I think when I was younger, there was this commercial for one of the milk brands in my country, and so they were like, if you take milk, you're going to be super intelligent, you're going to be a genius. When we were
Right.
young, we kind of believed those ads. We're like, I will take this milk.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes we reserve the milk. We say, no, well, I have exam next week. I'll take it before exam so that my brain will be super active and I will crush all the exams and all that stuff. The stuff is that they're just exaggerating, and at the end of the day, it's you know what I'm saying. So I think that's what a lot
I
of
do.
big podcasters and that's what they are doing in the news. You see Joe Rogan, you see Tim
Mhm.
Ferriss, you see the other big names. And this is it. You were talking about you don't try to get a quick buck except you have a big name. The funny thing here is that even the big name takes years. Joe Rogan has built a reputation over the course of years.
Well,
Tim
yeah.
Ferriss has been.
Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss, they both started their podcasts when podcasting was very young.
Yeah.
And they were showing up consistently doing this. And so neither of them had a need to be specific in what they were talking about. Both of them already had a level of celebrity, but they were known. And so whilst the podcasting market itself, as it were, wasn't that busy, there weren't many people doing podcasting. As podcasting started to grow, they were there. They were already there with small established audiences that grew and grew. So unsurprising that they would. But what is surprising is how many people still try to do what they did now. And if they were starting now, that wouldn't work. It worked then, it doesn't work now. Now you need to be niched in your podcast. You need to have a topic. I'll tell you this wisdom. I worked for a podcast training company for about a year, a company that helps people to grow and monetize their podcasts. And I was working in sales for them, partly because I wanted to be more deeply involved in podcasting. They're still going. They're still very great. I'm not working with them now, but they're still connected with the people there. But one thing I heard over and over again on sales calls was people are, oh yeah, I'm just going to start a podcast. I just want to talk about stuff with my friends, and we're just going to, chew the cud and talk about all the topical stuff and give our fresh hot takes on everything. Good for you if you want to do that. Go ahead and do it. But if you think that anyone other than your friends wants to tune into that, you're probably hugely mistaken. And it's not going to turn into a huge podcast sensation. But by all means, have fun, record your show and enjoy it and put it out there for you, your friendship group, and anyone who does enjoy that kind of thing. But I can tell you there's probably like 2 million podcasts with the name Real Talk or something very similar that are set up right, that are set up on that exact premises. I'm just going to give all my opinions and my hot takes. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. I like the fact that you're like, come closer, come closer. Let me tell you something. Nobody cares.
Sorry about it,
honestly,
but yeah.
I think it's, how do I put it now? It's you can get something out of it. It's just that you need to change your expectations. And it pains me because earlier on you talked about projects. You talked about how you started a podcast as a project out of Toastmasters and stuff like that. I see a lot of people who are probably maybe they're in mass comm, they're in linguistics, or maybe other stuff. And it's not like you have to start a podcast. But for me, I'm like, why not start a podcast? Even though nobody listens to it, you would say that, oh, this is a project I'm working on. Like, it's one of those things to add to your CV, especially if it's if it relates to the industry you are into. Like, I have a podcast I've been doing it for 2 years. I've been have the opportunity to talk to some of the so persons. You mentioned the people that people will know in your industry when you're talking about them. Hey, just a quick break. If you enjoying the insights so far and want even more behind the scenes ideas, inspiration, and tools for growing your own podcast, join my email list at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. You get access to helpful resources, exclusive updates, and the kind of stuff I only share with my email subscribers. Whether you're starting out or already podcasting, there's something valuable waiting for you. Head over to mypodcaststory.com/join and subscribe. Now, back to the episode. And people will just look at you and say, wow, like it's how do I put it? It goes beyond doubt to demonstrate that, okay, you've worked on an actual project in real life, and it makes sense, rather than, oh, I can do it, I have the qualification, I have the power, I have this, I am good at work, and I'm like, dude, show me something. I need something to trust you on.
Well, yeah, I think that's great. A really great way to look at it. And I would say this as well. Interview podcasts especially are really hard to do because most people are not good interviewers. You're doing a great job. You're asking really good questions. Interviewing is a hard skill. You have a good energy, you ask good questions, you have good flow to this. You're doing really well. I don't know how many interviews you've done, but you've got a good skill for interviewing that I'm sure will get better and better as you keep doing it.
Yeah, thanks for the compliment. I feel really, really, really great today. Yeah. John said I'm great at interviewing. Yeah, this made my day.
I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Let me bask in the glory of that compliment. sink it in.
Well,
Yeah.
you should. You absolutely should. There's a lot of important qualities to have as an interviewer. One is being able to ask good questions. Another is being able to be relaxed and engaged with the person
And
you're
yeah,
interviewing, and to be able to have some fun with it, to bring some
yeah.
laughter. And you're doing all of those things in our conversation. So good
Yeah,
for
and
you.
I think the most important thing is to be in the moment, to listen to the person talk, and
Mm.
not just have the questions. Of course, I have questions I want to ask, but you just don't want to be listening to ask the next question. You want to be there, say okay, yeah, so that the person knows that we're
Right. And
having a
I've
conversation.
been yeah, I've
Yeah,
been on those podcasts
yeah,
as well where they're just going through a list of questions. Several podcasts I've been on that they basically said to me, "Oh, here's all the questions we're going to ask. We ask the same 20 questions to each person who comes on the show." Like, how boring is that? How many
yeah,
times do you want to listen to people
yeah,
answering the exact same? That
yeah.
not for me. It's not for me.
Yeah, like I mean, if I was going to do that kind of podcast, I would do what we call asynchronous recording. I would just send the questions to the guest. I'll see when you have time,
Right. Let them
record the
record
video,
it.
answer the questions, and just send it to me, and we're good. Rather than we have to spend time trying to like, what's the use
Right.
of a conversation if you're going to like just read off a script and stuff like that?
And do you know what? I think this is where people really get things a bit wrong with interviewing and thinking that it's just about asking great questions. I mean, that is part of it, but I mean, great questions, not the same questions over and over again. And that part of that is being present and tuning into your guest and what they're saying or how they're saying it, connecting with their energy. But what people really want to hear, I think, is if they're going to listen to an interview, they want to hear a conversation. They want to hear a little back and forth. They want to hear some connection. They don't want to hear someone's TED talk. They don't want to hear just rote answers to things. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's an important thing.
yeah. It's there's a reason why it's called a conversation and not monologue.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a series of questions I want to ask, but I do believe there's one of the things, one of this personal development quote that I believe in strongly is that the things we work on, they work on us too. And so I would like
Mm.
for you to tell me how podcasting has kind of, you said you started podcasting in 2009, right?
2019.
Okay, because I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. The numbers were not adding up. You said 200 episodes and then 2009. I was like, I'm going to ask, but I was like, okay, let me confirm because I had 2009. Maybe you said it so fast. So the 19, the thing just vanished from it.
Yeah, 2000 towards the end of 2019, so I did a bit of podcasting in 2012, but not
Oh,
for very long.
oh,
And so I
what
came
was that
back
about?
into I think it was about similar things. I remember
So
checking last year to see if those episodes were still online somewhere, and they are, but I'm not sharing them with anyone because they're terrible.
you've forgotten about the first love. Is that how we do here? You've forgotten about the first love.
And we moved. It was traumatic. We
Yeah,
had to part ways.
it was a
So
terrible relationship.
needed to be left in the past.
But she made
But
you
I've
the
left
man
them
you are
online.
now. Oh my
Well, I
god.
think it was a good thing. Do you know what I mean?
Are we still talking
I
about
wish
podcasting?
I hope so. I wish I'd stuck with it, but I
Yeah,
didn't. I didn't see the value in it back then,
yeah,
and I didn't see the point of keeping making
yeah.
podcast episodes when I was only getting maybe 5 or 6 listens an episode.
Crystals.
I didn't understand the medium enough
Yeah,
then.
your eyes were not
I wish I
opened.
had. Yeah,
Your eyes were not
completely that.
opened. It took you like 2012. It took you 7 years to go back. Wow,
Mm.
wow.
Yeah, and that was, how we procrastinate about things. It was just
Man, seven
procrastination.
years
It
could
really
just go
was.
in
Yeah.
the flash of an eye. Honestly, I've been
Yes.
there. Like you're like, okay, okay, and then you're like 1 year, and then the next year, like this is one of my resolution. I'm going to start a podcast, and you're like,
Right.
and then you're like, okay, another year. And there's so many resolutions will carry over year after year, year after year. And it's not because those resolutions are hard per se. Like the resolution themselves, they're not necessarily hard. It's just that we have so many mind battles we're fighting in order to even start doing the things themselves.
Yeah, look, it's easy to let life get in the way if
Yeah,
you don't just take action and do it. The best time to take action is always now. I mean,
yeah.
the best time is like 10 years
10
ago,
years
but the
ago,
the next
next best time
the
is now.
next best time is now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Honestly, yeah. You started a podcast 2012, and then you started back in 2019. Okay, so
Mm.
not just okay. Of course, money. We'll talk about the money aspect, but I want you to like to leave the money aspect at the end of the put it at the end,
Sure.
and then you start talking about how podcasting kind of like affected you positively or negatively. We want to hear it.
I'll say this: I started doing an interview based show in 2019, and this was before really we had, like, you and I connected through Podmatch, and um, before there were services like Podmatch,
Podmatch.
there was not a lot. There was a few people who were doing like internet email things where you could, like, they'd send out an email with people who
Yeah.
were looking to have guests on their shows, or people who wanted to be guests,
Those
and
days were
so pick some
brutal.
people up from that. So yeah, so my first podcast guests were were kind of people you would never have heard of, people who um, really random connections, and a lot of random topics as well, because it was so hard. It was so hard to find relevant podcast guests back then. It's so much easier now. So I'd say, I've certainly developed in being able to network, being able to reach out to people, being a bit braver about putting myself forward. But one of the biggest things for me has been that I find it so much easier to talk about what I do and how I do things, and to just have these longer form conversations, because more of a natural introvert. Like, I'm somebody who, people who know me will tell you I'm more likely to be quiet than anything else, but I'll speak up when I need to. But podcasting has pushed me more into being what I would describe ambivert. I'll never be an extrovert, but I'm a little more extroverted now than I ever
Yeah.
used to be,
Okay.
because I've
You
had to be,
you
because I've had to push myself to do that.
you one of those people who say, I can summon the what's the word I would use now, when I need to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's there. It's a resource when I need it, but in many other aspects of my life, I'm still very
Yeah,
very
I'm an
quiet and
introvert,
introverted.
but when I
So
need
yeah.
to, I become an extrovert. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Right. Yeah. So it's good to have that flexibility. And I think podcasting has really helped me with that. It's also really helped me to understand that I think I very much had a fear of competition when I first started
Ooh.
podcasting.
Oh.
Over the years, and I see a lot of people get very protective about their business and their IP and all that. Over the years, I've had a lot of people on my podcast who do either exactly what I do or very similar things to what I do professionally. And it's always been great. It's always been great. It's always collaboration over competition for me. The rising tide raises all boats, right? And I see that so much within the podcasting world, where it's generally not transactional what people do there, because sure, people want to get clients or sell books or whatever, but generally they know that podcasting isn't going to do a huge amount for them, but it will do something. If you're on a big show, then yeah, it'll probably move the needle for you a lot more. But for most people, they're just giving on podcasts because they want to give, and they like talking about their stuff, and they get better at talking about it, and they want to connect. And so it's a much more connection based network than a transactional, oh, I'll do this for you, you do this for me
Yeah.
kind of thing, and then we're done. So it has transformed it for me. It's transformed my how I look at competitors in my industry. I don't really see, for the most part, people as competitors. I think there's enough work for everybody. And if someone comes on my show who does exactly what I do, and we have a great conversation, and someone's listening, think I'd rather work with them, great. You should go and work with them. But then again, someone's going to be listening, thinks, yeah, you're great and stuff, but I'd actually rather work with John. It's like, great, that's what it's about. I think it also develops that trust thing a lot more when you're there and you're not afraid. You're not
Yeah.
afraid that there's competition. You're not scared of your competition.
Yeah.
You're there talking with them, collaborating with them. It makes the world a better place, I
Yeah.
think.
I don't know why people who have lifestyle businesses would have that fear. Like, because for me, I feel that if it's a lifestyle business where you basically, like, because you're in that business, it makes it peculiar. Nobody can be you, right? And the funny thing is that when you have a conversation
Sure.
with let's say, for example, we're offering the same products, right? We help people do
Yeah.
basically the same thing. By having this conversation, you guess what we are doing? We are contracting ourselves without even trying. So when someone is listening to us, like, no, 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 no. I hated John. Now I love him the most. This guy, nah, 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 nah. I'm not even interested in what that guy has to say. And then you're like, oh, some people are like, nah, who's
Right.
this guy called John? Nah, my love for this wisdom is solidified. This is the guy. You understand? So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
contrast. We'll get people to see and say, okay, my mind is made up. Yeah, I really, really love this guy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's definite benefits in
Wow.
as somebody
And the
who's
question I
being a
want to ask
podcast
now,
guest. I think
and
there's a lot of value
hello?
in being a podcast guest to go on other people's shows. Yeah,
I don't know if it's
yeah, yeah.
is it
Sorry, we
lagging?
I think my mic was cutting out for a moment there,
Okay,
but
okay. Well, you were
go
saying
ahead and
something.
ask a question.
Hello?
Maybe, maybe. I was just saying, like being a guest on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can hear you okay. I can hear you fine.
Okay. I was saying being a guest on other people's podcasts is a really good thing to do
Yeah,
for yourself professionally,
yeah,
not just for the network expansion, but because the more credible the shows you go on, that credibility rubs off on you and your credibility rubs off on them. So we all get to grow and get more trust and credibility from each other
yeah.
from working together.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. I've spoke with some podcast guests who tell me that the reason they started their podcast is to is to have guests that are their clients come on the podcast, and hopefully if they like the podcast,
Sure.
they can close them as clients. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah, yeah, I know several people who've done that. So several people have done that very
Yeah,
successfully. One guy I even know who ended up he was in real estate and started a real estate podcast. He ended up selling the podcast as a client attractor to someone else
yeah.
for a lot of money. Yeah, it can be very valuable for
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to ask this question now, and I have to prepare the way for before I ask the question. I don't want, I don't want you to
Okay.
tell me. Oh, I don't really think of any. But if it's not really any, no problem. But I know definitely that you have an answer for it. What in the list of your top three most embarrassing podcasting moments? Could you share with us, or do you have any?
Undoubtedly, I have embarrassing podcast moments,
Okay,
but I think a lot of them. I'm not. I couldn't tell you that many of them have been published, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think probably the ones that have been published were where I guested on other people's shows,
okay,
and and just kind of messed up a bit. But I'd say probably one of my first, probably my first episode was a little embarrassing. So it could be seen as an embarrassing. I'm not embarrassed by it. I wasn't as good at podcasting then as I am now, and I'll be better in another 5 or 6 years. I'll be even better at podcasting than I am now. So yeah, I'm not embarrassed about that.
why
But
why
most of the stuff.
why are you hiding the
Sorry.
details? Why are you hiding the details?
Hiding
Give
the
us the
details. I don't
details.
know
Let
that
us
there's
be
a
the
lot of details to
judge of
give
it.
you. The embarrassing stuff probably doesn't really get published. Like there have been episodes that I've recorded, even solo ones, where I just haven't put them out.
Okay.
I would say my worst podcasting experiences have actually been with guests who weren't very good.
Ooh, what happened?
So so it tends to be, well, the first time this happened was with a guest who I actually knew quite well, and I thought she'd be a good guest, and she was very, very, very well connected as well. And I asked her to come on the show, and she was so condescending in how she was talking to the listener
Mm.
that I was like, I can't publish this. She's talking to me and to
Oh.
our listener like children. And it's like
Mm.
I
Mm.
can't in good conscience put that out as content.
Oh.
So being as it was someone I knew, I had to go back and tell her I don't think I can publish this episode,
Yeah.
and that did actually damage the damage that relationship.
Mm.
So that was pretty awkward.
Wow.
That was probably the worst. Since then, there've been other bad interviews, but I usually don't
Wait, wait, wait,
publish
wait,
them.
wait, wait.
And
Wait,
so
wait,
when
wait.
people come
What?
back,
Wait. I need to
yeah,
let me take some
go ahead.
some pointers. Let me learn. What is it like? I know what it means to talk as though you're talking to a child. But could you like help me and be more specific so that we don't,
Mm.
because I might be thinking that she unintentionally did it. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not representing her. I'm just assuming.
No.
but
I have to go on. I have to go on my best intuition for this as to do I think this is a good episode to publish? Would I listen to it? Is this what I want people who listen to my show to be receiving? So if I have a guest who's giving me like one word answers, which I've had that as well.
oh
Somebody who I had gone on his show and had a really good chat. So I was looking forward to him coming on my show. And then I think he was just having a bad day. He was giving me one word answers.
oh
I had another guy who showed up drunk for the recording
ooh
because he had only
oh.
the day before. Well, there's
Wait.
context.
I need go
He had
deeper
only
in this
just
story.
his
This story
sister
is
had died
interesting.
the day before.
I'm already
No,
seated.
it is
I want to hear
interesting.
more, please. Wow, why didn't we start with this?
It was
Wow,
understandable.
he started drunk. Wow.
His sister died the day before, and
Oh,
so he was drunk
yeah,
because of that.
yeah.
But it's like, well, maybe just
Yeah,
cancel the
just cancel.
podcast,
You know the state of,
you know?
like if someone lost their sister, like if I know I'm going to cancel the podcast, even if they tell me that yeah, I feel I'm great, we should record the episode, I will cancel it. I don't. There's nothing you can tell me. If you lost your sister a day
I
before, like
know,
I don't
right?
care. I'm just going to cancel it. It doesn't matter how important you think it is. We can do it maybe in a later date. Like
Yeah.
man, wow.
Or but I do get some that are they're just boring, and I don't want to put out boring episodes,
Yeah.
or they give that you're there to have a conversation with them, and they're giving a TED talk. That as well does not work for
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Um, you have to respect your
Yeah,
host. You have to
yeah,
respect your
yeah,
host and involve
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. That's I know when you said that I knew exactly what you're talking about. Like I've had those moments, and I'm like, and naturally I
Right.
hate interrupting people. I hate when somebody's like
Yeah.
deep into the there's a way you're just so deep into the statement that like you're trying to like cut the person. You're trying. You're like okay, let them just talk. Oh, because like
Yeah, but this thing it's like you have to be careful, right? You
yeah,
have to be political as a podcast host to a
yeah,
degree and say, um, you do the recording, you make the episode, but then are you going to publish that because it doesn't look good on you?
yeah,
It doesn't really look good for your audience. If you didn't need to really be there, that doesn't look good for you.
yeah,
So yeah, do you want to put that out to your audience? But also you don't want to be rude to your guest,
yeah,
and because they've given up their time to come and speak to you. So yeah, you do have to be somewhat diplomatic about this
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
and say, well, thanks for coming and recording the episode, but
Wow. So you say
ultimately you're
but
probably not going to publish if you value your audience.
yeah, like
You say,
no,
oh, there was a
no.
technical problem with it, or yeah, it's coming out soon, it's in the schedule, and then you just ghost. Yeah.
Oh my god! Wow, wow. Wow. The funny thing is that
What can you do? What can you do?
okay,
Because it's either that or you direct with them and say that wasn't a good
yeah,
episode.
it's either that or
It's
usually
not
what
really
I
how
do.
I don't want to be that
Yeah,
guy.
usually it's either that or usually what I do is I just turn the format of the episode to something else, and I turn it to a solo episode, and then I add snippets
Yeah.
of their conversation. Like when you're doing a documentary and you're talking and talking and talking, and then you put in
Potentially,
you put
yeah.
a short snippet of an expert quote, and then the expert is talking, oh this, and then you cut back and you're back to yourself, and you're like, so actually what I was saying was this, and at the end of the day,
If you can.
yeah, at the end of the day, you still publish the episode, yes or yes. So yeah, it's a very thin line, and you have to be careful with it. Yeah,
Sometimes. Well, look, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to create a narration around somebody's presentation effectively,
yeah,
where you can still involve yourself in it and cut out those clips, because you have to be able to have clips that work by themselves without
yeah,
the context of the rest of the
yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
and then be able to make sense of that. That's a lot of work, and most people do. I
Man,
certainly do not have time
that's
for
a lot
that.
of post production. I'm not gonna lie. That's like recording 2 or 3 other episodes
Yes,
combined together.
exactly
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, that's man, oh man. And sometimes there's one I've noticed, right? And I don't know, maybe it's for organization issues or stuff like that, but it's every time I see that message, it pisses me off, honestly. And it's when I book guests, right? And this is from this is from these big guests that have a VA that manage their calendar, and there's nothing bad with it. I understand that perfectly.
Uh-huh.
And after I book the guest, I send them the
Sure.
schedule link as the host, and they book a time. And they've agreed, they've booked the time, we've finalized everything. And then, like 2 days before the meeting, they're sending me a message and asking me, "Are you sure you come for the meeting? If you don't say yes that you're going to come for the meeting, we can't add it to our calendar." And I'm like, I keep smiling because I'm like, I can still tell you, yes, I will be in the meeting, and I will still ghost you and nothing will happen. And I'm like, we've already agreed. We are gentlemen. You've booked a time in my calendar. I will show up, except of course unforeseeable circumstances come up. Right? Why are you doing? Why do you? I feel like I just feel that that's
Yeah.
like overzealous. Why do you have to now do that when you're like, this is me. Like, I'm the host. I'm the one that reached out to you to come on my podcast. Why do you have to now be doing it as if whenever I see, I've seen that message like 3 times, and every time I see it, I'm like, nah. It just irritates me.
Thankfully, yeah, thankfully I don't get that, but I've not had that happen to me. But I have had people not show up for recordings, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah, yeah. That.
and then so often never provide any reason why, or
Ooh.
suddenly, like, well, where were you? Family emergency. It's amazing how many people have family emergencies sometimes, and I don't want to call people out on it. Maybe it's genuine, but more often than not, I think it's not.
Yeah, yeah,
But I do think this. I think if you're doing podcasting as a professional to boost your professional reputation or to grow your business, then show up as a professional.
yeah,
If because if you were, it doesn't matter if you're being booked for, I don't know, Jordan Harbinger's podcast or any big name show. If you book for that, you're going to show up, right? You're going to make it happen.
yeah,
And if you don't show up for that, then definitely something big has happened.
yeah,
Well, give the same level of respect for newer podcasters as well. Just because somebody's newer and has a smaller podcast doesn't mean that they're not going to be just as successful
yeah.
ultimately. You don't know.
Like,
They might grow to have a huge podcast, and then you were one of their early guests,
yeah,
and people are like,
like,
wow, you got on that trend really
yeah.
early.
Like, we all hate that guy who behaves differently to a rich guy and then behaves differently to a poor guy. Like, that's not. It's not good
Right.
character. I don't like that kind of person.
I'm with you
Yeah,
there. I'm with you there. It's like you have to. Like I have no idea how many episodes of podcast. I should have done some research, maybe, but I don't know how many podcast episodes you've got. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, but I hope you have a very successful
yeah,
podcast. But I'm going to come here, and I hope I'm being respectful to
yeah,
you and being a good guest for you. That's what it's about. You show up when you're supposed to show up, and you do the thing. You don't just say, "Oh well, they don't have many listeners. They don't have a lot of shows. It doesn't really matter. I'm busy. I've got other things to do."
yeah,
Like, I'm sorry if that's your attitude with that. I'm a little bit on the how you do anything is how you do
yeah.
everything. If that's an example of how you show up in your life, not someone I want to
Yeah,
work
and
with.
and and it's on the whole idea of building relationship. I'm just saying, because imagine if you've come on my podcast now and I'm like, and somebody mentions your name, like, this guy I saw, John Ball. Right, I'm like, yeah, yes, he's been on my podcast, and I'm like, what do you think about him? I'm like, yeah, based on the interview we had, these are the couple of things that. And of course, what I have from the interview is not enough for me to tell the kind of person you are, but I'm like, yeah, but he showed up early. We had a decent conversation. Yeah, the guy,
Right.
he has a good energy around him. That's a good word. But then I'm like, nah. Could you believe that I was in the studio? I was waiting for him 10 minutes. The guy just hopped on and he told me life happens, and I have no idea what that means to today. I'm not like, it's now it's not what I said. There's no like there's no crime. You've not committed any crime, but when if I tell my friend that kind of recommendation, they're like, nah, this guy is not good for business. Yeah,
Yeah, if I think it's a good attitude to have to treat being a podcast guest is a media opportunity. Treat it as a media
yeah,
opportunity when you get the
yeah,
chance, because you have no idea who how many people who was going to listen, who's going to be listening, and how big that podcast might end up being in the
yeah.
future. You just don't know. So treat it as if it already is.
Yeah, I mean, irrespective of people,
It's
the
what I
number of
say.
people listening and everything. I mean, it's just normal respect. It's just show how you respect and how you treat people. That if you're not going to come on the podcast, tell them that I'm sorry, my calendar
Yeah.
is booked, I am busy, and I really respect that. But if you're going to come on the podcast, you should like respect. You gave me your word. I should be able to hold you onto your word, and that's the measure of a man. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea if you're going on a show that is specifically talking that maybe is relevant to your business particularly, and you're going to be talking about stuff that they do in business and that you do in business as well. It's probably a good idea to find out more about them first, and maybe even listen to some of their episodes before you go on there, because you're gonna have a much better idea of how to direct the conversation and how to show up for the show. And also, if you listen to one of their guests, if it's a good guest, great. If it's not a good guest, you've got a bar or a level to show up to as well. So it's like what level of guest that they're having on the show.
yeah, and honestly, like podcasting is a hack because I just can't imagine. We've never talked in real life before. I've never met you before this podcast, and now we are having a conversation, and it's over an
Right.
hour now, and we're having a conversation, and I'm like, if you could build that skill and work on it, like you're going to be a networking genius, and you just go to parties, you start talking to everybody, irrespective of who they are, you start connecting with them. And people are like, dude, how do you do it?
Right.
What's your secret? Tell me. And they're like, dude, you don't understand. I've been doing this for like 5 years. So like, when? My podcast. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I do consult to people, not necessarily on podcasting, although I have. And my consultation fees are not cheap. But when I'm coming on to a show like yours to be a guest, I'm not well, okay, it's not a consultation, but you're getting a lot of my insights and experience that I might share in a consultation. And it's only costing you the hour of time and the recording equipment and whatever you're investing into your podcast.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal,
Yeah.
I
Honestly.
think. I see that as well with guests I have on my show. Yeah, there's many of my guests I
Yeah.
couldn't
Like,
afford to hire and
honestly.
consult with,
Yeah.
but they'll come on my podcast.
Yeah. And for me, I feel back to the same thing we're talking about trust. If I listen to someone on a podcast and they're giving so much value, and I'm like, dude, this podcast is free, and this guy is just giving all this stuff. I wonder what it would be like if I pay for his consultation.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
that. And if you've got plenty to talk about and you're quite open with it, people will assume that you've got more,
Yeah.
and probably
Yeah.
rightly so, that you have a lot more. Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing what happens when you're having a good conversation. It's just 1 hour. Wow.
It's been very enjoyable. It's gone quick,
Yeah,
Wisdom,
yeah,
and you've asked some really cool
yeah,
questions. So I appreciate
yeah.
it.
I'm trying to hold it. Let this conversation not go further before we're like 90 minutes. I'm like, nah, what happened? I thought you told me 1 hour. Where can listeners learn more about you, your podcast, and what you do?
Well, one of the best places to check me out is my website, which is presentinfluence.com. And that you can find all my social media links there. You can find both my podcast links there, as well as my work I do in professional speaking and coaching. So pretty much everything about me is at presentinfluence.com.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. One final question before I let you go. What's the
Sure.
weirdest place you ever had to record the podcast episode?
In the wardrobe of a Travelodge hotel in the UK.
Wow.
I don't remember that. Bournemouth, I
Wow.
think. Bournemouth. Because it was the only place that didn't sound super echoey. And so
Wow. Okay. I'm just trying to paint the
and so
picture
yeah,
in my
I mean,
head. I'm
yeah.
trying to paint the picture in my head, and I can see you folded up in the wardrobe. Man, oh man.
It was one of those wardrobes without a door. So I had to hang the
Oh,
duvet from these coat hangers just to try and take down the echo in the room. Thank goodness it was audio
wow,
only though.
wow.
Yeah,
I'm trying to imagine how sweaty you were when you were recording that episode.
it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was in the UK. It's not that hot.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll add that to the list of weird. I've had other guests too, and some of them they're giving some weird places.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yours is there, but I won't say it's top 10, but it's there.
I'm sure people have done far weirder
Yeah.
podcast
What
interviews,
have we
but
not done
yeah,
for
that's
podcasting?
the weirdest for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's been a pleasure.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.